Well, alright. We're going to talk about Battlefront, the beta. Like I said, this is the second part of the video. The first part was where I talked about the Battlefront beta and mentioned the positive things about the game. However, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the negative things about the game. And let's face it, people love negativity, and this is what they want, this is what they want to hear, and they want to rip the game a new one. And I'm going to oblige, and I'm going to do the same thing. But like I said in my previous video, if you haven't checked it, I'll link in the description below and put an annotation on the screen where I mentioned that the game is actually fantastic. So personally, if you want to ask my opinion, what do I think of the game is brilliant, is absolutely magnificent. I cannot wait to get hold of it and play it. It's going to be really good. However, it's not perfect. I mean, nothing in this world is perfect. There are obviously going to be issues and problems, bugs and glitches, especially because it's a beta. And I just want to run through the stuff that I saw and I experienced, and the things that were potentially not game breaking, but they removed you from the game and kind of removed the element of fun at times, and maybe the illusion or the immersion of it. So it's definitely something that needs to be considered. But for the most part, 80 to 90% of the game is fantastic, and there's only a few bad things in there. But let's get into it and talk about those bad things. Now, there aren't that many negative aspects, like I said, there's only a few. The main ones come in the form of glitches and bugs that are visuals. Now, I've seen people literally fall through the map. That is not acceptable at all. I know it's just a beta, but that is not acceptable because it happened a lot in Battlefield, and my fear is that it's going to happen a lot in Battlefront as well. Now, I don't want that, you don't want that, the developers don't want that, no one wants it, okay, because it's a really shitty aspect. So that's something that needs to be considered. But the problem doesn't just go as far as the troops. I mean, I've even seen the AT-ATs and AT-STs, so vehicles, right, land vehicles, they've glitched through the ground, and they've just kind of embedded themselves into the floor. And the thing is, they can't move, because in certain glitches, when you glitch through the map, you can still move around and you can see people above you. But with the land vehicles, they glitch down and they can't move at all. They're stuck there for the rest of the game. So I don't know what the hell's up with that, but I've seen that a few times, and that's kind of annoying, especially if you're in AT-AT and you want to move forward and support your ground troops. You can't, because you're stuck there, you're stationary, and the battle is raging on ahead of you, and it's too far away for you to actually be effective, so you can't fire your weapons. I mean, you can, but it's not going to do any damage, you're not going to get any kills. So it's basically you wasting like 60 seconds of your time trapped in this tin can in the middle of nowhere. So that's a pretty shitty aspect. But anyways, other visual glitches include the heroes. Now, the main glitches come in terms of character models. So sometimes the troops that you run around with, they glitch and they die and they're kind of floating in the air. That happens very rarely, it only happens a few times. But the main character glitches come in the form of heroes. So when you get the hero pickup, so your Luke Skywalker or your Darth Vader, and you're doing this kind of fighting, you're fighting the troops, sometimes what happens is you don't hit the troops, so your lightsaber misses them, but they die anyway. So I don't know if that's a kind of hit detection issue or an animation issue, I don't know what that is, but it's definitely a visual bug. And the other visual bug comes in the form of the heroes when they're fighting together. When you have Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker fighting each other and they use a powerful attack, that, you know, sparks fly everywhere and looks really cool. But what happens is sometimes the characters kind of spin around and they kind of do this weird glitchy thing, and they spaz out and jerk out and do all this weird shit, and they kind of pull apart and fly apart, and I don't know what the fuck is going on, right? Something definitely going wrong there, and it definitely needs to be fixed. And the other main complaint that I have about the heroes is that when one is defeated, when you kill a hero, whether it be Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker, they just collapse. They just fall to their knees and just sit there for about, I don't know, 20 seconds, and then they disappear. So they don't get up, walk away, they don't teleport, they don't fly away, they don't do any of that shit. They just blend into the atmosphere and they just disappear, as though like they're wearing the cloak of invisibility or something, and just gone, just like that. So I don't understand if that's a bug or a glitch, or if the developers intended it to be like that, or perhaps that they didn't have time to get an animation ready. Perhaps they made the beta and they released it and they said, while they're playing the beta, you know, while the community is engaging in the beta and giving us feedback, we can work on the full animation for the full release of the game. So maybe in the full release of the game it's not going to be like that. I hope it's not, because it looks pretty shitty, because you've got stormtroopers or the rebels running around Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker who's just like sitting there in the middle of the snow, in the middle of chaos and battle, and they're not moving, they're not doing anything. So that definitely needs to be fixed, in my opinion. Another aspect that I need to talk about within the game that's really shitty is the fact that it doesn't have server browsers. Now, I'm going to make a separate commentary about this because I think this is a huge issue, but basically, if you didn't know, usually in PC games, especially on the PC platform, you have the ability to go through servers and choose whichever one you want, which is pretty standard, right? It's a staple diet, it's a staple thing within PC games. You can choose anything you want in terms of servers. You can have filters, so you can have certain servers with certain rules. For example, in Battlefield, there are certain servers with rules such as no shotguns, no mortars, or recon limits and sniper rifle limits and things like that. Because personally, for example, when I play Battlefield, I don't like to play against mortars, because they just sit in the back of the map and they spam the shit out of that and they get kills, and they're not doing anything. They're just basically spawn camping, and they are keeping themselves out of harm's way and getting kills, and it's just cheap and it's easy and it's not very nice. So I play on servers where mortars are not allowed, for example, personally. But with Battlefront, you don't have that ability because there is no server browser. You click play and the game just picks you up and throws you into a match in progress. You have no say in the matter. You can't choose anything. There are no filters. The game fucks you. The game just puts you wherever it wants, and you roll the dice and you just hope for the best. You hope for good teammates, you hope for a full lobby, but you have no control over it. So I think that's a pretty shitty aspect, especially on the PC platform. The game should have had server browsers. It just should have. I mean, even if Hardline and Battlefield 4 have it, why doesn't Battlefront have it? What's so special about Star Wars that the developers didn't give the players the ability to search through servers? Well, what the fuck is that about? Anyways, the next point I want to talk about is the AT-ATs. Now, this aiming issue or a visual bug or kind of like a glitch in the game, but it only affects the AT-AT, so the large tin can, the big walking metal dog, not the little one, not the AT-SD, but the AT-AT, the large one. Now, what happens is when you get in the AT-AT, you're in there for about, 50 seconds or something like that, and within that time limit, you can rain down hell upon your enemies, and it is really fun. I mean, it's one of the most fun kind of land vehicles or aspects within the game that I've found personally. However, when you get in the AT-AT and you're aiming with the weapons, the place you shoot is not the place you hit. So there is a disconnect between what you're aiming at and what you're hitting. Because what happens is you put your reticle, your crosshair over a certain aspect of the game, in a certain part of the map or a player, you fire, and your bullets or the lasers or the shells, whatever it is, they hit either above or below, depending on which weapon you're using. But it doesn't hit the exact place you aimed, which is, again, a huge glitch. I don't know what the fuck is going on there. When you're aiming at something, it doesn't hit where you aim. So you can aim, let's say, just above a player or just in front of him, and it will go in a completely different direction and it will hit the ground in front of you. And you're like, I didn't aim there, why is it hitting there? So it's very annoying, very bad, like I said. So within the AT-ATs, you have three types of weapon. You have the main primary blasters, you have the secondary large cannons, and then you have an orbital strike that you can use. And all of those are really, really cool. However, with the orbital strike, what happens is sometimes you use it and it takes a while to recharge like everything else in the game. And when it is fully recharged, you try to pick it up and place it in a different environment or a different location on the map and call in an orbital strike again, but you can't move it. So there's this blue circle that shows you where the orbital strike is going to land, and you can't move it from one place to another. No matter how hard you try, it always stays in that position, and by the time you get a third orbital strike, you're pretty much finished in terms of you've run out of time. You can't stay in the AT-AT anymore, and that's pretty frustrating. That's another glitch that I saw within the AT-AT, and I hope that they fix it for the full release of the game. But basically, the AT-AT was fucked. It was literally fucked from day one. They really missed the mark on that. I personally think that when it functioned, it was the most fun thing in the game. However, it functioned very rarely, so that's something that they really need to concentrate on, and hopefully they'll patch it. Another aspect that I thought was probably misplaced in the game is the personal shield. Now, I don't know who thought that was a good idea, and I don't know if that actually exists in the world of Star Wars. It probably does. However, I personally think that it doesn't have a place in the game. I don't understand why you would give someone the ability to cloak themselves in this shield and become invincible. Yes, it's not permanent. Yes, it only takes a few seconds, and it lasts maybe like 9 seconds or something. However, that's personally, first of all, way too long. It shouldn't last that long. It should only last maybe 3 seconds or 5 seconds. And the recharge time is way too short. It should take much longer to recharge, because it's a very, very powerful tool. Because if you think about it, it makes you invincible, which means that you just survive. You live to fight another day, and the person is cheated out of their kill. Because let's say you're on 10% health, you switch on the personal shield and you run away, and you've got the shield for about 10 seconds, and within those 10 seconds your health recharges and you go back to 100% health. How is that fair? How is that fair? That's just like a really crappy aspect that removes the element of gunfights within the game, and it gives people an unfair advantage. So if you have the personal shield, you will win more gunfights than someone who doesn't. And I understand that if you use the personal shield, you can't use other cards and other abilities in the game. I get that. However, if you combine it with the booster pack, the jetpack and whatnot, and you have the personal shield together, you just become this flying invincible ball of blue. It's crazy. I personally think that it shouldn't be in the game, and if you are going to keep it in the game, which they probably will, to be honest, you definitely need to adjust it and retweak it so that it only lasts for 5 seconds and it takes 15 to 20 seconds to recharge. And that brings me on to the next point. The sniper rifle and the other abilities within the game, the cards that you can have at your disposal. All of them personally I think are fantastic, apart from the personal shield. However, they take such a short amount of time to recharge. They should take much longer, especially the sniper rifle. I mentioned this in the previous video where I talk about the positives, and I said that the sniper rifle is really cool. I think it is fantastic. However, it's a one-shot kill to the head, and you can't have that, especially when you use it and it recharges in like 6 or 7 seconds. That's crazy. That's way too short. It should be, again, 12, maybe 15, maybe 20 seconds to recharge. Because if you don't have that, you got people camping or kind of holding down an area tactically, or you got people with an advantage, for example on the cliff, in the middle, and they're just sniping people constantly sniping the shit out of people and reducing their ability to advance, and it creates a stalemate and it ruins the flow of the game. However, if the recharge time and the refilling took much longer, the enemy troops could move up and it would force that player to actually get out of their camping spot and fight the enemy, and it would improve the gameplay, it would improve the gunfights. However, right now it's not very balanced, so I think that they need to balance their time out with the abilities. So for example, the grenades, they're perfect, you don't need to change them, they're fine, but the personal shield, remove it, or if you're going to keep it, make the recharge time much longer. I'm talking like 15 seconds or something like that. And with a sniper rifle, the same thing, make sure it's like 15 seconds to recharge, maybe 20, whatever they decide, but right now it is not good. And now for the main complaint. Now this complaint, or this kind of issue or bug within the game, is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that they had this in the game. I genuinely cannot believe it. I mean, it existed within Battlefield and it was a huge problem then, but I don't understand why they didn't learn from their mistakes, and that is spawns. I mean, if anyone has played the game, you know that the spawns are fucking terrible. You literally have 5, maybe 6 people spawn in front of you or behind you or next to you, and it's crazy. And the thing is, I'm not complaining about the spawn system in terms of, if they spawn in front of you, oh, there's loads of enemies. No, I mean, when you are the one spawning, that's a huge problem. I mean, could you imagine you're just getting into the game, you're just going from the main menu to the in-game environments, and you get shot immediately because your body is there before your screen transitions, which means that your body is open to fire and open to take damage. So sometimes I would spawn, and before I could even move, I'm dead again. I'm just instantly dead. It's crazy. So you can't be spawning and having enemies around you. If there are enemies within certain spawn locations, because I know the spawn locations are in set places within the map, so you can either spawn on location A, B, C or D, and they don't move. They're always stationary, right? They're always in the same place. However, the game should be able to make some sort of distinction between that. If they can see that there's loads of enemies at spawn point A, don't spawn anyone at A. It's just fucking common sense, right? Can't they create some sort of program or some sort of algorithm which could look at the locations of the enemies and compare that in relation to the spawn points, and if they're within a close proximity, you just spawn people elsewhere? But no, it doesn't have that aspect in the game. So people keep spawning in the same place and the enemies just keep mowing them down, and you're getting shot from above, from the left, the right, behind you, and there's no way to react. There's literally nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can hope for is that you get a good spawn point, or if your partner spawns in a better location, you can spawn on them. And I really dislike this aspect. I mean, spawns are one of the most important things in the game because it kind of determines the flow of the game and the kind of the gameplay and the gunfights, and it determines the movement of the game. And if you have it like this, in this way, it's basically gonna fuck up the game entirely. So I really hope that they fix it for the launch. Like I said, it was a beta, so it's probably a beta issue, but if something like that exists in the main game, it's going to absolutely destroy it. The next complaint I have is squads. Basically, squads don't exist. It's not like in Battlefield 4 or Battlefield Hardline where you can be in 4 or 5 people parties or whatever, and you have loads of teammates in your squad and you can move together, you can spawn on each other. It doesn't happen in the game. It doesn't exist. Now, my theory is that because this game is, the Walker game mode, that is, it's only 20v20. So it's not like Battlefield 4 where you can have 32 versus 32, which is why they reduced the number of people in your squad. So you only have one person, and it's called your partner. You can spawn on your partner can spawn on you in Battlefront. So it's not like Battlefield where you have 4 or 5 people in the squad and anyone can spawn on anyone. It's not like that anymore. They've reduced the numbers, and personally I think that the reason they reduced numbers for the people in your squad is because there's far less players on the field at the same time. So I can definitely understand why they did it, but do I agree with it? That's a different story. I mean, personally, I like it when there's 4 people in a squad minimum. 5 is really good, but at the very least, give us 3 or 4 or something like that, because one other person is not enough. I mean, people are dying left, right, and center, okay? Let's face it, it's an FPS game. There's loads of chaos and war and shit going on everywhere, which is very fun, by the way. That's not a complaint. I love it. However, when your partner dies, you have to spawn all the way back at the spawn point, and that's kind of crappy. I mean, if you had 3 people or 4 people in a squad, you can choose who to spawn on. Okay, 4 people might be too much, 5 people would definitely be too much, but at the very least, give us 3 people in a squad. You have 2 partners, you can choose who to spawn on, and it just makes it more tactical because you've got 3 people moving together rather than 2. 2 is not enough, personally, I think, especially when you have AT-ATs and AT-STs and aircraft and jets and shit everywhere. It's not enough. You need minimum 3 in this game. So personally, I would like to see that be implemented into the full game. Are they going to do it again is a different story. I personally think that they won't. They'll keep it like this, but I think that's just something that they missed the mark on. So they could have got it perfect, they could have got it right, they could have got it absolutely brilliant, but they didn't. And finally, I just want to talk about the field of view. Now, you can play this game in first person, you can play this game in third person. It depends on what you want. Personally, I don't like third person games. This is the FPS game. It should be played in first person view, FPS, but to each their own, I suppose, and the developers thought that it would be a cool aspect, whatever, I don't really care. However, if there is going to be a third person in the game, it's going to give people a huge tactical advantage, because they're going to be situationally aware, more so than people in first person view. And the reason for that is because when you enter third person, your field of view increases. You can see more of the battlefield, you can see more to your left, you can see more to your right, and more importantly, when you're behind cover, you can tilt the camera in such a way that you can see people coming at you. You can see any danger or potential threats to you, and you can act accordingly. So there's no element of surprise, there's no element of skill, there's no element of reaction. You're basically kind of omnipotent, and it's crazy. So personally, I think that it shouldn't exist in the game. However, like I said, if you are going to keep it in the game, which they obviously are, and you're going to have it as a feature, then you need to balance it out. And what that means is when you're in first person, the game just operates in a very standard way, and when you enter third person, you shouldn't be able to tilt the camera, or the recoil pattern should increase, or the spread of your weapon should increase. You know, you reduce the accuracy, or your character is more susceptible to damage, or something needs to happen to balance it out. Personally, I think that reducing the accuracy of the weapon and increasing the spread of the weapon, and maybe decreasing the range of the weapon, things like that affects the weaponry, would be perfect. Because obviously in terms of the view, people are going to have a huge advantage, so you need to balance that out by giving them a disadvantage in a different area, which is gunplay. But anyways, those are pretty much my thoughts on the matter. Those are the things that I saw in the game that are very bad, or things that are pretty glitchy or shitty that I think should be fixed or changed. Let me know if you agree with this list, if you disagree with this list. Let me know if I forgot anything, any other glitches or bugs or issues that you saw in the game that should have been mentioned. Put them in the comment section below. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video.